The plot against her begins with quiet moves and bold intent. It never starts with a gunshot or a shout. It starts with a pause, a look, a choice made in a back room where the lights buzz and the air smells like old dust. People like this never think of themselves as villains. They tell themselves they are just solving a problem, removing an obstacle, cleaning up a mess someone else made. They convince each other that she is the threat, that she knows too much, that she stands in the way. And once they lock into that story, the rest feels easy to them. They move slow at first. They test boundaries. One of them follows her car at a distance, just long enough to track her routine. Another goes through her trash, looking for anything that gives them leverage. They learn her schedule, her preferred routes, the places she feels safe. They study her posture and how she carries herself, not realizing that everything they observe is only what she allows people to see. They think they are peeling back layers, but they are only scratching the surface. Their conversations get braver as their confidence grows. They talk late at night in a garage, voices low, music playing just loud enough to blur their words. They whisper her name like it is some kind of curse. They lean over a table covered in cheap maps and printouts, tracing the lines of her life with their fingers. They are careful, but not smart. They operate with the belief that planning equals superiority. They imagine themselves as predators who picked the perfect target. In their heads, the outcome is all but guaranteed. They do not understand the difference between watching someone and truly knowing them. They see only the parts that make sense to them. A woman living an ordinary life. A woman who keeps to herself. A woman who does not flaunt her past. They misread her silence. They decide she is alone, exposed, and vulnerable. They have no idea that discipline has a shape, that patience has a sound, that danger has a way of circling back. Days become weeks, and their confidence sharpens into greed. They talk about timing. They talk about exit strategies. They talk about how easy it will be. One of them laughs a little too loud, imagining how quickly it will all be over. Another taps his fingers on the table, restless, eager, hungry for something he does not even understand. They think bold intent is the same as real power. They think the absence of resistance means they are winning. None of them stop to wonder why everything seems so smooth. None of them question why no alarms go off, why no signs point back at them. They do not imagine she might already sense the shift in the air. People like them believe danger moves in straight lines. They do not notice when it comes in the form of silence, or when it waits for them to make a mistake. As the days pass, their planning takes on a ritualistic feel. They run through scenarios over and over, convinced that precision is on their side. They check their tools, their messages, their timelines. They think they are being cautious, but they confuse caution with control. They fail to see how many gaps they are leaving behind. Their focus narrows to the point where they are blind to anything outside their own narrative. Meanwhile, they start telling themselves a new story. They say this will fix everything. They say life will return to normal once she is gone. They build their confidence on fantasies, mistaking imagination for certainty. They picture her unaware, unprepared, living life without a clue that a storm is building around her. They cling to that idea because it makes them feel big. It makes them feel like masterminds instead of amateurs. They never pause to consider that the quiet moments they rely on might be something else entirely. They do not know that stillness can be the first sign of calculation. They do not know how danger looks when it watches back. They assume she is just moving through her days without suspicion, blind to what they are arranging behind the scenes. They believe the world is giving them permission because nothing pushes back. Their bold intent grows into something heavier. It fills the room when they meet. It pushes them forward even when logic tells them to slow down. It convinces them they have already crossed a line and there is no turning back. They cling to the idea that they chose the right target. They rely on the false comfort that the quiet moments are proof of their success. They continue tightening the net around her with the confidence of people who think information equals power and planning equals victory. And all the while they have no idea how wrong they are. The conspirators underestimate her past and her training. They see only what stands in front of them now, a woman living a life that looks simple on the surface. She shops without drawing attention. She speaks politely. She keeps her distance from unnecessary drama. Nothing about her day-to-day routine hints at the years she spent sharpening herself into someone built to survive chaos. They do not know what it means to train until exhaustion becomes comfort. They do not understand what it takes to break fear down until it is nothing but background noise. When they talk about her, they describe her with small words because they think small words fit her. They call her quiet. They call her harmless. One of them even calls her predictable, like she is a pattern waiting to be solved. They build their plans around that idea. They move with the confidence of people who think they understand their target better than she understands herself. It never occurs to them that every assumption they make is wrong. She learned long ago how to live in a way that hides strength, how to adjust her posture so people underestimate her, how to step into a room without sending a ripple, how to let danger pass close without reacting. Training like hers does not show unless she wants it to. It lives in how she listens, how she breathes, how she measures a space the moment she enters it. It shapes the way she notices details that others miss. It sharpens her instincts until they work faster than thought. The conspirators mistake her calm for complacency. They think her lack of panic means she is unaware. They do not realize she is always aware. She was taught to scan without moving her head, taught to track changes in tone and temperature, taught to feel the difference between normal noise and the kind of silence that carries a warning. People like them have no idea how many hours it takes to turn those skills into instinct. They do not imagine that someone could live quietly and still be dangerous. They think her past is something she left behind. In their minds, training fades, skills dull. People stop being sharp when they stop using the tools that made them strong. They assume distance from the battlefield means distance from the mindset. They never consider that training at that level becomes part of a person's bones. It becomes a reflex that does not disappear just because life grows quieter. One of them mentions that she used to be military, but the others brush it off as if the detail does not matter. They picture a few years of basic routines, nothing more. They have no concept of what it means to be shaped by missions that demand precision under pressure. They do not know the kind of discipline that comes from pushing past limits until limits lose meaning. They tell themselves that time softens everyone, and they believe that because it makes their plan feel safer. What they fail to see is how her past affects the present. She knows how to seem relaxed while tracking exits. She knows how to keep her breathing steady while evaluating threats. She knows how to listen for footsteps that do not match the rhythm of the environment. Her training taught her how to look unthreatened even when preparing to act. It taught her how to separate emotion from decision, fear from response, panic from movement. As they watch her from a distance, they misread everything. When she pauses on the sidewalk, they assume she is distracted. When she adjusts her bag strap, they assume it is out of habit. When she takes a different route home, they think she is simply switching things up. They do not see the calculations behind her choices, or the way her senses pick up on what others dismiss. They do not realize she can feel the shift in energy long before danger becomes visible. What they call a weakness is the very thing that protects her. Her quiet is not emptiness. It is awareness. It is patience. It is control. She learned to stay still without being passive, to wait without losing readiness, to let people believe she is vulnerable while she evaluates whether she needs to defend herself. They confuse her self-control for naivety. They confuse her calm for softness. They confuse her silence for ignorance. Every step they take is built on the belief that she is just a regular woman who stumbled into something bigger than she can handle. They do not understand that she has already handled more than they can imagine. She has lived through moments that would break them. She has faced threats more skilled, more organized, and far more dangerous than anything they are capable of. They are amateurs playing at being hunters. She is someone who learned to survive under the worst conditions and come out sharper on the other side. Their underestimation is not just a mistake. It is the foundation of their entire plan. They believe she will freeze. They believe she will panic. They believe she will be easy. They believe training ages like a memory instead of living like a muscle. They are certain they know who she is, and they trust that belief more than they trust reality. Fear is their weapon, but she refuses to break. The men plotting against her rely on fear the way some people rely on luck. They believe if they can control what she feels, They can control what she does. They talk about fear as if it is a switch that can be flipped, a predictable reaction they can trigger on command. They think fear slows people down. They think it closes their vision, clutters their thoughts, and forces mistakes. In their minds, fear is a leash, and once it tightens, their target becomes manageable. They imagine her waking up one morning with a sense that something is wrong, but with no idea why. They want her to doubt routine choices, question familiar sounds, and second-guess her instincts. They want her to lose trust in the world around her. They hope she will feel watched even when no one is close. They want her to sense danger everywhere until she is too overwhelmed to think clearly. That is the version of fear they understand, because it is the only version they have ever felt. They assume she will respond exactly as they would. They send small signals at first, nudges meant to disrupt her peace. A stranger's car parked too close. A shadow in her peripheral vision that lingers half a heartbeat too long. A call with no one on the other end. They think these tiny cracks will grow into panic. They think her mind will fill the gaps for them, constructing threats that put her on edge. They never consider that fear cannot take root in someone who has already stripped it down to its core. She has faced fear in forms they cannot imagine. She has felt the spike of adrenaline as a team moves through a dark structure with no guarantee of safe exit. She has heard the heavy silence right before a breach. She has experienced the rush of knowing that the next decision could save a life or end one. Fear was once a constant companion, but she learned how to reshape it. Training taught her how to channel it, how to ride the edge without falling off. The purpose was never to erase fear, but to master it. When the small disturbances begin, she notices them, but she does not react the way they expect. Instead of spiraling, she observes. Instead of feeling trapped, she becomes more deliberate. She has lived through moments where fear had real teeth, so these shallow attempts barely register. She knows how to slow her breathing even when her pulse rises. She knows how to widen her awareness rather than letting it collapse into panic. Fear does not distort her focus. It sharpens it. The conspirators take her lack of visible reaction as a win. They think she is suppressing fear. They imagine her pushing it down, pretending everything is fine while her nerves fray. They have no idea that she is analyzing the pattern behind the disruptions. They do not understand the look in her eyes when she scans a room. They think it is worry. It is assessment. Fear works differently for someone like her. It does not weaken her. It wakes her up. It guides her attention to the right places. It pushes her to question what others ignore. It teaches her which details matter and which are distractions. While they believe they are planting seeds of panic, she is using each moment as a clue, a way to map out their intentions. They keep escalating. A door left slightly open. A footprint in the dirt where no one should have been walking. A car that tracks her for 3 turns instead of 2. They believe each moment builds pressure. They imagine her hands shaking as she tries to keep her composure. They fantasize about breaking her without ever physically touching her. Their biggest mistake is thinking fear alone can undo someone who learned not to submit to it. She evaluates every threat with patience, not emotion. She understands the difference between instinct and paranoia. She knows when to trust her gut and when to verify. Her training taught her to separate what she feels from what she knows. It taught her how to act based on facts, not the adrenaline that accompanies them. Fear does not cloud her judgment. It focuses it. She uses it to track patterns and anticipate moves. She listens more closely. She watches more carefully. She responds only when she needs to, conserving her energy, waiting for the right moment to act. To the conspirators, she looks unaware. In truth, she is navigating the threat with a calm they cannot fathom. They believe fear is a weapon they can control. They do not understand that she has already experienced fear at its strongest and survived it. She has already walked through situations where hesitation could mean death. She already learned long ago that fear is predictable, but her response does not have to be. They think they are shaping her behavior. They do not realize she is studying theirs. Her instincts kick in long before they think she notices. She starts feeling the shift the way a seasoned swimmer feels a change in current. No dramatic sign, no flashing warning. Just a subtle difference in the air, something most people would shrug off. She has lived enough life to know when the world around her bends a little out of shape. It always starts with the small things. A sound that does not match the rhythm of the neighborhood. A car that is familiar in color but not in placement. A stranger who looks away too fast. These are details most people never catch, but she was trained to read the quiet spaces between moments. She pays attention without letting her attention show. She keeps her shoulders relaxed, her steps the same length as always, her pace unchanged. She knows better than to announce awareness. The moment you react, you give whoever is watching exactly what they want. So she stays steady, but her mind is already running a different route. She catalogs each oddity. She compares them to her patterns, checking for behaviors that do not fit. Her instincts are not loud. They are not dramatic. They whisper, and she knows how to listen. The conspirators believe the early stages of their plan are invisible. They rely on distance and subtlety to make her feel off balance. What they do not understand is that she does not need proof to start preparing. She feels the presence of something wrong before it takes a clear shape. She has learned to track tension the way others track time. When the world around her tightens, she feels it. When someone watches her with intent, she can sense it in the pressure of the moment. Her instincts tell her to adjust her routines, and she does it without hesitation. She changes the times she leaves the house. She alters her routes. She checks her mirrors with more intention. She shifts her posture when entering new spaces, giving herself better angles to observe without being watched. To the untrained eye, it looks like nothing. To someone who knows the language of preparation, it speaks volumes. She understands that instinct is not magic. It is experience stored in the body. It is thousands of lessons absorbed over years. It is the memory of situations where hesitation could cost lives. Her instincts come from repetition, pressure, and survival. When something is wrong, her mind does not panic. It filters possibilities. It builds scenarios. It looks for the next move. She pays attention to the way people behave around her. The barista who usually talks too much is suddenly quiet. The neighbor who always waves avoids making eye contact. A delivery worker steps a little too far onto her porch. None of these things confirm danger, but they shift the tone of her environment. She senses the difference in energy, and she knows enough to trust the feeling. Instinct is a form of early detection. It gives her a head start before the threat closes in. She notices the car that appears twice in the same day on opposite sides of town. She notices the man pretending to check his phone while watching her reflection in a window. She notices the slight drag in footsteps when someone is following too closely. Most people overlook these details. Her instincts highlight them, not with panic, but with clarity. Her body reacts even before her mind builds the full picture. Her shoulders square without tensing. Her breath deepens. Her vision widens. She becomes more aware of exits, shadows, and faces. She moves through her day with a calm that masks readiness. Instinct does not make her frantic. It makes her precise. She also knows when not to act. She understands that responding too early can force a confrontation she is not yet ready for. Instinct is not just about movement. It is about timing. She waits, collects information, and watches for patterns to repeat. She lets the danger reveal itself piece by piece rather than rushing to expose it. The conspirators think she is oblivious. They misinterpret her steady routine as vulnerability. They assume she is lost in her own life, unaware of the trap forming around her. They see her calm and think it is ignorance. They have no idea it is discipline. They do not realize she already feels the threat. They do not know she has shifted into a state they cannot read. They believe they are invisible, but she is already tracking them through instinct alone. Their plan collapses the moment she shifts from target to hunter. Up to that point, they feel certain they are the ones driving events. They think they decide the pace, the distance, and the pressure. They talk like men who believe they are leading her toward an outcome she cannot escape. But every plan built on a false understanding eventually cracks. And the first crack forms the instant she stops thinking about what might happen to her and starts focusing on what she intends to do about them. That shift does not look dramatic. It is small, almost quiet, but it changes every piece of the game. She begins by tightening her world. She removes unnecessary noise from her life so she can hear the important signals clearly. She takes the same routes they think they have mapped, but now she walks them with intention instead of routine. She notes every place they might use as cover. She studies reflections, angles, and blind spots. She takes mental snapshots of faces, even ones that seem harmless. She is no longer living her day. She is scouting it. The conspirators think she is still moving through life unaware. They have no clue that she has switched from being observed to observing. They mistake her steady pace for helplessness when it is actually control. Her posture is relaxed, but her mind is not. She is reading the field the way she was trained to read unfamiliar terrain, searching for pressure points, weaknesses, and mistakes. She knows those mistakes always appear when people think their plan is flawless. She focuses on patterns first. People reveal themselves through repetition. A man who only appears on her street when she leaves the house at a certain time. A car that turns away when she turns toward a crowded road. A signal interrupting her phone not at random, but at moments aligned with her movements. The pieces begin to fit into a shape she can work with. She builds a picture not from fear, but from structure. Once she understands the rhythm of the threat, she tests the edges. She slows down at a spot where they expect her to speed up. She speeds up in a place where hesitation is normal. She looks back over her shoulder at moments when no one would expect it. These are small tests, but they force reactions. Reactions reveal pressure. Pressure reveals intent. Each time they shift in response, she learns more about them. The conspirators do not realize they are being mapped. They think they are tightening their grip when they are actually exposing their weakest points. People who assume they hold the upper hand always leave blind spots. They grow sloppy while believing they are precise. They take risks without realizing they are risks. She watches their confidence grow and knows that confidence will be the very thing that betrays them. As she gathers information, her mindset shifts into the one she used during operations long before this moment. She becomes deliberate. She becomes efficient. She becomes unshakable. That shift is not loud. It is not theatrical. It is simply a return to a version of herself that she rarely needs in civilian life. The version of her built to endure pressure and dismantle threats. Her questions become sharper. Who is watching her and why? What do they want? What is their exit strategy? How are they communicating? She does not need answers to all of these questions before she acts. She only needs enough to predict their next step. Once she has that, the idea of being a target loses meaning. She is no longer reacting to their moves. She is positioning herself to control the outcome. She begins to move in ways they have not accounted for. She steps out of sight without warning. She appears in places they did not expect. She changes her routine not in ways that hide her, but in ways that test theirs. Every time she disrupts the pattern, they scramble. Every time they scramble, she learns something new. Hunters reveal panic faster than prey ever does. The conspirators start to feel something they did not plan for. Uncertainty, a sense that their timeline is slipping, a suspicion that she is not as predictable as they assumed. One of them mentions that she is harder to follow lately. Another dismisses the concern, but the seed is already planted. They begin to watch her more closely, unaware that watching her closely is exactly what gives her the clearest view of them. When she finally commits to shifting her stance fully, there is no ceremony, no dramatic moment, just a quiet internal decision that she has enough information to move from defense to offense. She stops waiting for them to reveal the next move. She starts engineering situations that force them into decisions they do not want to make. She steps into environments that limit their options. She uses darkness, noise, distance, and unpredictability as tools. Her shift transforms the entire dynamic. They no longer have a plan. They have reactions. They no longer control the space around her. They chase it. They no longer see her as a passive element in their scheme. They begin to sense, without fully understanding why, that something has changed. The feeling unsettles them. It erodes their confidence. It exposes fractures in their unity. And the moment those fractures appear, their plan, once so neatly arranged, begins to collapse piece by piece. They learn too late that Navy SEALs accept danger without hesitation. Up until that moment, They treat danger like something they can control, something they can dose out in careful amounts to keep her off balance. They assume fear and pressure work on everyone the same way. They assume once the threat feels close enough, she will lose the ability to think clearly. But that belief comes from their own limits, not hers. They have lived lives where danger is an interruption, not a constant. She comes from a world where danger is the environment, not the exception. When the moment finally arrives, they expect her to falter. They expect the shift from watching to confronting to shake her. They expect hesitation because they cannot imagine stepping into a threat willingly. They do not understand that hesitation is a luxury she learned to leave behind. Her training drilled into her the kind of clarity that only comes when everything around you sharpens into a single objective. When she decides to move, she moves without pause. That alone breaks their entire understanding of her. The first time she steps toward one of them instead of away, he freezes. He is not built for close proximity to resolve. He thought distance would carry him through the plan. He did not expect eye contact. He did not expect steady breathing. He did not expect her to close the space between them with the confidence of someone who has walked into far worse situations. He assumed fear would keep her anchored. Instead, she becomes the one applying pressure. Her calm throws them off. They see danger as something loud, chaotic, unpredictable. She treats it like a familiar landscape. Her movements are precise. Her steps land exactly where she wants them. Her voice, when she chooses to use it, is controlled and even. She is not chasing adrenaline. She is executing. For people who have relied on intimidation, seeing someone absorb their threat without flinching is disorienting. It strips them of the power they thought they had. The conspirators begin to react emotionally. One becomes impatient. Another becomes nervous. A third starts questioning the plan out loud, breaking the false sense of unity they tried so hard to maintain. They argue in whispers. They repeat instructions. They shift blame before anything has even happened. This is what happens when people who feared danger attempt to orchestrate it. Their nerves work against them. Their panic becomes visible in the smallest gestures. Meanwhile, she pays attention to everything. She watches their breathing patterns. She watches the tension in their shoulders. She watches who speaks first and who stays quiet. She watches who backs up and who leans forward. Each detail is a clue. Each clue is a tactic. She knows how to read these signals because she was trained with people who mastered hiding them. If she could track danger among the disciplined, tracking it among the sloppy is effortless. When they finally make a move, they do it too fast, too loud, too desperate. They rush where they should have paced. They speak where they should have stayed silent. They step into light when they should have stayed in shadow. They reveal their anxiety in every motion. They move like men who want the moment to be over, not men who are prepared for the outcome. That single difference is what separates people who survive danger from people who fold under it. She reacts with a clarity that unsettles them. She does not stumble or scramble. She pivots. She adapts. She responds with the same focus she learned to use when everything depended on the next breath. They see no fear in her. They see decision. They see experience. They see the gap between who they thought she was and who she actually is. One of them tries to regain control, shouting an order that cracks on the last word. Another tries to step forward but hesitates mid-stride. The third realizes too late that the situation is slipping out of their hands. What they thought would be a clean execution becomes a mess of split decisions and exposed weaknesses. They wanted her scared. Instead, they are the ones shaking. She applies pressure with efficiency. She limits their options. She uses their reactions to predict their next moves. She does not raise her voice. She does not waste energy. She does not give them a clear read on her intentions. She stays ahead of them not because she is stronger or faster, but because she accepts threat the way they accept comfort. She has lived in moments where hesitation costs lives. They have not. They realized too late that they were never prepared for someone like her. They believed they were hunting a civilian. What they were actually facing was someone shaped by environments they could not endure for even a minute. They thought danger would scare her. They did not understand that danger is the language she speaks most fluently. By the time they see the truth, they already know they have lost.